should probably.
Yes. So this is what happened with my business. This is what happens when I look for asteroids in people's charts. This is what happened through this whole process is it started out one thing and I was like, yes, and it makes sense and all of the synchronicities are there, but then it ended up being in like everything that was there was just heightened, and I felt like it was amazing. Like just thinking about like the midheaven, right? It's like what's above you. It's the way that you are in the world, right? It's like when you're in a job and you're like utilizing your second house, which is, you know, it's a financial house, and you're utilizing your sixth house, which is your daily routines. You're always in your midheaven, regardless if it's the thing, the life purpose that you want to do, right?
Right.
Mine is about like, you know, understanding other cultures, higher learning, being in the higher mind. And so I'm very happy-go-lucky. The fire energy is very happy. It's very much like, you know what? Everything is exciting. What you were saying the other day about how you are always like playing, that is very Leo. Leos are like young children, but it's more that they're utilizing the wisdom of play, right? They're going into everything with a fresh mind. They're not taking things personal. They're looking at every experience as something to learn from, but they're doing it from the best perspective, which is sort of the Fool.
Yeah.
I'm going into it. I don't have any idea how this is going to turn out.
I'm constantly of the let's see what the fuck happens. Like I love it when shit hits the fan. And this is the thing. Like I don't like drama, but also I really appreciate when shit hits the fan. And I really appreciate the like chaos that can ensue because fire is chaotic, right? It just whips through things and you don't get a say, right?
No.
But because so many lessons come out of that chaos, it's always awesome. In the end, after the fire goes and you're looking around at the damage, you're like, well, shit, I learned some things, right? If you're hopefully aware enough to like recognize that that's what's going on. But I love the chaos. I love the unknown. I don't like being bored.
No.
I'm not even like life's not even really boring ever. Like I don't ever think it's boring, really. I can't really remember the last time I was like thoroughly bored because there's always something. But yeah, I think that Leo energy is strong with this one.
Well, and so the thing too is that for me and you to have the same element there, and also it carries over into the full house, right? So like your midheaven starts at 2 degrees Leo, and then it goes into the first couple degrees of Virgo. So there's this fire earth there, where mine starts at kind of the end of Sagittarius and goes to the middle of Capricorn. And so again, the other part is that the ruler of Sagittarius is Jupiter, and that is in Leo for me, conjuncting your midheaven. Your sun is at 0 degrees Capricorn, conjunct the midheaven that I have in Sagittarius. When I look at astrology and I see such strong indications of something like this, and all of these little things that like would seem random, that does not seem random to me.
Right.
That seems like it was only a matter of time before you and I were ready to do this.
A matter of time.
Well, and you just didn't have a choice, and I didn't have a choice. The minute that and this is the part that I'm getting to, is like that moment when I woke up and I was like, okay, Bobby's gonna co-host. Because my dad had been telling me, he's like, you need a co-host. And I was like thinking, and I was like, I could not think of anybody that would be doing it and consistent. And you know what I mean? I get that there are other people that would, on whatever level, but it was the consistency, it was the want to do it, and it was being able to meet me at the space that
Right.
I'm ready to move into the space. And I needed somebody who was there, who wasn't necessarily somebody I had so many other connections with that it would make it really difficult, because then all of a sudden the friendship is involved. And
Right.
I think you and I are friends, but we are able to maintain our own, we have enough respect for each other and what we're doing. We're not involved. There's not a lot of crossing energy, right?
Yeah, it doesn't have to get, it won't get, it wouldn't get messy, right? It
No.
won't get messy. And I know what you're saying, because you can't, you can't work with people when you're, it's so funny. It's like family businesses, right? Family businesses would be an example. I, was in my family's business for a long time, and all the drama could ensue all the time. And it was so crazy what would happen, because your personal life is so intertwined with your business life. Like, you can't leave it, right?
No,
But
you
you and
can't
I
work
are
together.
like, we don't even live in the same county. Like, we don't, like, we're not even, like, part of that, I think. And that's if we were seeing each other all the time, or no, I mean,
Well,
like,
but I think that we will, and we're making it our own thing. But I think having the thing is that when you have a planet that rules the midheaven, that planet is bringing the energy of what that public domain looks like.
Mhm.
The sun and Jupiter have similarities, and they're both really expansive. The sun is in the center of the universe. I mean, the center of our universe, right?
Mhm.
It's in the center. It's expansive. We wouldn't be alive without it. Jupiter is the biggest planet in our solar system. Those things are expansive. They need to be fulfilled, right? So it's not these like random things. Those are really important placements. And the fact that we have it in each other's 10th house shows we're meant to do this. We're meant to be in each other's public life. And if I look back to all of our friendship, we don't have a lot of time of hanging out at a beach house somewhere in our private world. We've
No.
always kind of seen each other in this public space, recognized each other. So when I see that, it shows me that this was just a matter of time before you and I made that connection, because I've always subconsciously known that you were part of that bigger picture. And I've also noticed that it never really fit until recently.
Right.
So
Yeah.
when I looked at that and I said, this is fascinating, because there's a lot of fire and earth going on there.
Mhm.
I don't have a lot of fire in my chart. This is like pretty much the extent of it. And Neptune is conjuncting my midheaven, which interestingly enough, Jupiter and Neptune happen to be the ruler and the traditional ruler of my rising sign. This is not accidental. This is actually like totally on track.
Right.
And I can see the thing. And the same thing happened when I picked Asteria, who is a goddess for my business name. I found her in my chart really prominently. And I even found her in my solar return chart really prominently, going into my 10th house, which is the public, which is when I chose her as my business name, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And also right about the time we started doing this, Jupiter was trining my midheaven. So like, this is a really important time period. There's building blocks happening. And because you and I share the same element, we have the same goal. We have different ways of getting to that goal. Mm-hmm. Mine is more like, changing the dynamics, the sort of religious, spiritual energy that's more, it's less serious, where yours is like, you are meant to be in some spotlight. You are meant to really carry a lot of energy, which is why you go into places and you're able to like make deals with them and get it all for free, because those are things that would usually be blockages for you that you figure out how to make happen so that you can get the tools necessary for whatever this next thing is. So you have
manifestation skills are on point.
Right. and my expansion skills are really great, right? Like I know there's something in me that's like,
Which
know what?
Is fabulous. Because I always feel like personally, I'm really good at the stepping stones. And it none of this is unconscious. Like, I remember when I consciously made the decision, like, I just want to learn all these different aspects. We talked about that the other day. Like, I'm going to be a witch, but how am I going to do it? How am I going to do it in a way that relates to this climate, this, at that time, because this was 15 plus years ago. God, it was like 18 years ago. You know, you couldn't really say, oh, I just want to like be witchy. Like, it really was kind of still weird. And now, because of social media, because of something about the political climate, the I don't know what's happened, but in the last couple of years, it's, you know, it's hard because as like an old school practicing freaking Wiccan, like, I'm like, who are all these like people that are all pretty and making witchcraft look pretty? Because I'm like, it ain't pretty. Right?
Well, and I think anything
I got that crone energy happening right now.
and I think anything that like for me, my calling came, and I think, you know, automatically when you do astrology and tarot, I have always been connected to that witchy energy.
Yeah.
And I also love the earthy part of it, right? Like, I just got Hecate's Garden, which is just amazing. And then I'm like buying all these witchcraft books now, and I've always been connected with Egypt stuff. And there's that feeling of never fitting in. So like kind of fitting where in society that means. And like, I got tattoos. I was thinking about this when I was 15 years old, before tattoos were even what?
Can I hear you?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
So I was saying that I was like thinking about like how I got tattoos like before everybody got tattoos, and like it was like only sailors and people that got tattoos.
Oh my God, children of the 90s.
I know, right? And like I was getting it like with like, you know, like a needle and thread and some tattoo ink, and I was just like, but I always went towards things that one went up against the societal norms at the time, because I just never fit into that. So I was like, let me just buck right up against it. Let me just not go to school. Let me not listen to these people. And the thing is that I was always super intelligent. I was always really smart. And I always kind of got that society is anti-intuitive. And what I mean by that, and when I usually say that, and I talk about this a lot, anti-intuitive is like the thing that doesn't make sense, is the thing in society that we're all living by, like pulling yourself up from your bootstraps, or you have to work really, really hard to be successful. You know, all of these things that we're taught in over a period of time, they don't resonate for me. And I've been really good at listening to my heart and my soul and my body of what made sense and what doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, and it's funny because something about this sort of industry in particular, this holistic world that I'm in, this new agey kind of world, it's all about taking care of yourself.
Right.
And I think people are waking up to this idea of like, oh, wait, I don't have to kill myself to work. I don't have to work for other people.
Right.
To necessarily be happy. I can do the things that bring me joy and get paid for it. And I don't know, you know, I just was talking to my husband, our friend, she has a pizza restaurant, well-known pizza restaurant up here, and she's down 6 employees. And it's so hard because you're like, well, that freaking sucks. Like, you're an entrepreneur and you have no employees and you need people to work. Also, she's super happy and she's fine. And like, she's carrying the place just fine, which is great. But where are these people going? Right. And this is like, you know, everybody is really waking up. I think 2020 and 2021 really showed people, oh, what brings me joy? What am I really trying to like do with my life? Because time is short. Like, you have to just follow your heart and your knowing, and just like stop listening to what the societal expectations are or have been put on you, right?
Right.
That's all that is just they're there to perpetuate the system. Like they're not there to look out for you. You're not being held by, working your 50-hour a week job. Like you're just helping support other people.
Right.
Like helping
Well,
bring others, big corporation, bring these big businesses. Like if you're not in your work and enjoying it, like, I don't know, money doesn't fix
so
it.
no, it doesn't. And I think that's where the midheaven comes in actually into astrology, is that that's your goal. That's your North Star. That is like, where do I want to be? What do I want to be embodying? And if for us, fire is like creativity, right? Warming society. Are you frozen?
No, I'm just really good
warming society, bringing in, and fire needs to devour something, playing with candle magic. You see, as soon as there's nothing left to burn, it's like jumping around and it's like, oh, the closest thing possible, right? So like we're in that energy. And then but there's other people who have like earth energy, or they have water, where they're supportive. And I think a water midheaven is actually a lot harder, right? Because they're supportive, they're empathic, they're sort of trying to be the back to everything, trying to understand the energetic level. And I think where that really becomes important is that can help show us not just where our interests are, but what we look like when we're in alignment.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you think about the midheaven means that it's like right directly above you. If you're here in the center of an astrology chart, that is the thing above you. Whereas the thing below you is the IC, and that is like your home life. Yours is in Aquarius. So Aquarius, like there's this weirdness about you. No offense. It's like this like alien. And I know because mine is Gemini, right? So mine is like nobody heard me in childhood. And there's this sort of emotional, because it's square my moon, this emotional issue. Whereas like, you're dealing with a lot of like, I came into this very weird situation and nobody has that around me. So how do I work with this? It's where we need to heal in order for us to really live in our midheaven, right? In order for us to be out there in the world, because whatever this is sort of society saying, this is what either makes you different or makes you feel awkward, or it's this thing that you've just been carrying around your whole life, and it has had a big impact because our home lives, our environment, the things in which we believe about ourselves are all so impactful in who we are. But it's the thing that stops us from living that true joy, because fire is true joy. Fire is like the Kundalini rising, like the snake in your spine that wants to go and, open up all your chakras and have you live in this bliss. But we can't live in bliss, because here's what happens.
I'm gonna sneeze. Go on.
That's okay. But here's what happens. As soon as you start feeling this joy, everybody around you is going to be like, it's like you have the spotlight on you, and you're just like wanting to share it. Obviously you found the secret, and all that darkness comes up and they're like, why don't I feel like that? And then they're jealous, and then they're just, and it's not their fault. It's just how we're conditioned. If you've been around somebody that's had really good energy when you're in a bad mood, it can
pisses you off. Yeah,
it does. It's like, fuck that person. And it's not, we're just reflecting each other. You did the work to bring this in, and you're no longer taking those things that are stopping you from feeling that. You're no longer letting them overpower you. But every single person has this thing where they want to do that, where we're trained to do that to the people around us, to keep us all in alignment, to keep us in the matrix.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and that's the work, right? That's the work I know I'm trying to do, is like help people realize they don't need to like live in this competitive, judgmental, self-deprecating like bubble. You just
Right.
you don't need to, and if anything it holds you back. And but it's scary, because then you have to be confident, you have to share your gifts, you have to love everybody no matter whether they suck or not. Like you have to, and you have to trust something other than what you plan or what you've been told is going to bring you success and joy and love and whatever. You have to trust that like what you're being marketed isn't real, right? And that there is something better and more real, like actual real, like tangible gifts that you can receive and then share. And that
Right.
it's not about possessions, and it's not about money, and it's not about I don't know, looking young. And it's marketing is so interesting, because to me it's a huge part of business, right? This marketing thing. But
Mm-hmm.
it is so one of the things that has always made me uncomfortable, because
Right.
I want to make sure that when I'm using marketing for anything, when I'm really because to me that's a fire element, because that's how you ignite. Like that's how, in a business, that's how you put your flame out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're like, hi, you're the torch, you're the light over here, right? So how you're bringing in that power, that
Right.
energy, the focus onto you, right, is a very, very much based around marketing. Like it just, that's, if we're talking business, that's what it is. So
Mm-hmm.
how do you do that, but like really stay in, like, where you're just not full of shit. Like marketing is so full of shit. And there's copywriting around, and like sometimes when I've written copy, I'm like, this is so generic. This is
Yeah.
so, is this real? Like, this is what everybody says, right? This is what everybody says. So like figuring out, how to like find your authentic fire, like find it, that it comes out of you and you don't even have to try. Like
Right.
it's just real and who you are, and it sparks, and then people are drawn like moth to a flame. Like that is what I really want to help people find,
Mm-hmm.
especially women, because I think as marketing has been, we're easy. We're easy to market to because we're so sold. We're so easily sold. I don't know, men might be. I'm not a man, so I don't really know. But like I feel like
Well,
women really get sold on all the things. And social media has made it worse, but that's a whole other topic.
well, and I think what the authenticity is important in this, because I struggle with the marketing factor of building myself into something, emailing people constantly, being relevant all the time, being viral. Those
Yeah.
things don't necessarily interest me, just because like I'm really a student of life. And I was thinking about this, my big thing is like, I want to go on a journey to enlightenment. I want to go to Egypt, and I want to do all of these things. I don't want to be stuck living in this like marketing world where I'm sending out emails and
Yeah.
people are like, I don't want to be on your mailing list, and then taking that
Totally.
personal. But I think
Yeah.
what you're referring to with the women versus men, and here's what I kind of feel about that, and I don't know that this is staying with your point at all, but that as we come into our power, as our personal power as women, our authenticity puts out this light where people who are drawn to work with you will work with you. And if you believe in the law of abundance or the law of attraction, as long as you're living in your authenticity in communion with source, you will attract all of the things that you need to happen. You will attract people, and they will find you from the most obscure place in the whole entire world to come work with you and give you exactly what you are open to manifesting. And I feel like women are more open to that because our natures are more about authenticity. We want to connect with people when we're in our right vibration, with the same vibration. And we're a little bit, and I don't know that all men, I'm not really, I don't generalize like that, so I don't want to make it, but I'm saying a lot of men in today's world tend to be more in their head. And in order for us to really bridge anything, is we've got to take all of this energy and help bring it into our heart where we can feel. And I think that is a struggle, as far as like the mainstream sort of energy that I think we're really more referring to as the collective consciousness, and not this like, you know, men versus woman type of thing. But men who are in their power are learning to do that too. And we're raising sons that are learning to do that because they see us. Like I asked my son yesterday, I was like, does mom being a witch bother you? He's like, no, mom, you do you, you know, like,
Totally.
I mean, he didn't say it, but you know what I mean? Is it was essentially like, he loves this about me, actually.
Yeah. My kids do too.
Because we're not ashamed of it.
Right.
We're not hiding from it. And the thing is that light, you can't stop your light once it starts shining. You're going to be able to, and this is my thought, is when the right light, brightness, and the people start coming to you, it will be perfect in the way that it is. You're going to learn all the things that you need to learn about it. You're going to attract the people that you need to attract. Think of all the people that you've attracted recently that have the other side to what you need, what you need to learn, where you're going. That, like, every single piece, Bobby, I have somebody to do my bookkeeping, which I wouldn't be good at. I have somebody to do a podcast with. I have somebody to record it. I have all of these things that when I was ready, those things became like the light shone on them. It was obvious that these things needed to be. Right. But I wouldn't have seen them if it was in my darker aspects, if I wasn't connected to that alignment.
Yeah. So, I mean, the moral of the story is do the work. I mean, do the work, like clear out, you know, the first step really is like recognizing your blocks, right? Recognizing those fears, recognizing that the voices that you're hearing are not your own. They are, you know, everybody else around you who was telling you as a child this, that, or the other, you know, when society got to you, when your parents got to you, you know, and not that they meant, they, you know, most parents don't mean to, but they messed us all up. Like, you know, they're just a different generation, and they had a whole different generation, and they had a whole different generation. Right. With so much different struggle, different, I mean, everything is so different. Like, you think about just the evolution of humans in the last 100 years. It's insane. What's happened, right? Just industrial revolution to now is like crazy. Like, we're aliens. like if a person from 1900 just got dropped in right now, they'd be like, you guys are aliens. Like, but we have to find those, we have to really sit in those discomforts and those things that are holding us back. And I think you and I both done a lot of work around that, right? Just really, I mean, I've been doing that work since I was 14, probably, when my dad was like, here's some acid, it's going to change your life. And I was like, okay. And you start expanding your mind, and you start, you know, reading different kinds of books and listening to different kinds of music. And like, you're, you know, as much as we look down on teenagers, we also like really inhibit their growth by kind of putting them in boxes, where there's times when you can't hear me.
No, I'm like,
okay. There's times when we're really, really good at telling children what not to do and not encouraging them to do the deep work. And if you could start early, by the time you're 30 or, our age or earlier, you'd be so much better off, like let's start
Well,
healing
we hide from it,
damage
right?
early.
We hide from the work because in our society, we've been told that these things about ourselves are not good, whatever it is, whether you talk too loud, you're a woman and you're bossy, you're a man and you're feminine, whatever the thing is that you've been told, the thing about you that makes you stand out is actually your biggest gift. It's just waiting for you to accept it and to go, you know what, I do talk loud and I am bossy. So you know what, I am, and like all of these kids, I love teenagers personally. I work,
You're
do
entertaining, I would imagine. You spend a lot of time with them, huh?
well, no, I mean, I do and I don't. I'm more in like their peripheral of like making sure that they have people in their life that are supportive of them, because I manage a mentor from my end, I manage the relationships of mentors and mentees. Mm-hmm. And I always advocate for them. I'm always like, there's not one way to get to a goal. It took me forever to graduate. Same with you, right? We're older college students. We had families. We were doing it. We're anti-intuitive, so we just do everything the way that we're not supposed to do it. And I think the kids that I see in the alt-ed schools, the kids that I see that aren't fitting into the school system, those are our leaders.
Yeah.
That's you and me, right? That's like, you know what? We did not fit into the school system. And so I have coworkers that they're beautiful people, but they've been doing the path and they're like, you know what, this is the way it is. It's going to be so much harder. And I do agree, it will be harder, but also might be so much more worth it for this kid to be able to realize that constructive, and what I want to say is the collective conscious that we're all downloading, whether it's something that intrinsically in our society that's not acceptable, or whether it's some feeling that you got from your parents or some way in which the school tried to tell you this is who you are, whatever that is, we are all channeling that energy constantly. So we know if I go to the grocery store, I don't know, this is a random example, but like if I go to the grocery store, I'm not just going to cut in line in front of the person in front of me. Like there's a way to do it that's respectful, which we all want to be. So really underneath all of it is the intention that if we do things a certain way, we're doing it in a respectful, moral, whatever you want to say way, then we don't have to make other people uncomfortable.
Right.
And so that's really the intention behind it. But then what ends up happening is it goes so much more into, like I see posts all day long. I love reading comments because it's really helped me to not make judgments. Mm-hmm. And I love parenting because they're so angry and they're like, you need to do this with your kid, whatever it is. Yeah. It could be like the stupidest thing. And all the parents are like, you're a horrible parent if you don't do this, this, and this. And it's like, some of it is like, like if you don't brush your kid's hair and it gets all matted. Yeah, I mean, that is neglect if you don't take care of those basic needs. Yeah. But then there are other things that are not so nuanced. But if you're on the side of the parents, then you're good. And if you're not, you're bad.
Right.
And if you're bad, there's no redeeming yourself. Where in society do we get this thing of like, well, if I do all of the perfect things, well, guess what? You're never going to do all of the perfect things.
No.
And it's exhausting to try to fit in with that. And that's when we're not in alignment. That's when we're not in authenticity. When we spend all our time listening to the collective conscious, which is nobody's actual original idea. There's nobody on this planet. There's nothing new here, and nothing that we're downloading at any time hasn't been done at some place in the universe or multiverse before. We think that we're so original. We want to copyright everything. This belongs to me. Right. No, the universe gave it to you. The universe or the collective conscious. Now, I think that the universe is downloading to us in the collective conscious, which just depends on which part of your mind you're resonating in. And if you're resonating with the universe, it's the stuff that feels good coming in. You know, you get like the burst of energy and you can't stop until you either write it down or figure it out or whatever it is. The collective consciousness is stuff that's fearful. It makes you feel bad, right? And it's whatever the resonance of the majority of society, like a GPA, right? So like if it's fear at one side and enlightenment at the other, you know, the power versus force kind of thing, what's in the middle, right? And so we're resonating with all of the people, the collective conscious, we're all one. We just don't know that.
Yeah.
So whatever the lowest person and the highest person are coming together and meeting somewhere in the middle. So that is, we can't escape that, but we can do better, because as we raise our own vibration, we actually raise the vibration of the collective conscious. But also noticing, we really have to get into this thing of like, one, we're all energy workers, we're all channelers, we're all of the labels, we're all of those things. Yeah. You might not say I'm a witch, but you have witchy tendencies. You know what I mean? And if you resonate with something at all, you have that. I've seen so much gatekeeping on things. Yeah. People saying, oh, you're not a witch unless you have these 10 qualities, and you have to have all 10 of them at all times. And it's like, that's not how it works. If you're asking yourself,
jealous, I think I'm personally jealous of these younger younger maidens that are coming in and being like, just owning it already. I'm like, you don't understand. We like that's not fair.
They wouldn't be there without you. They would not be.
I know. I'm like, they get to start early, you know.
Well, there were people in my mom's generation, you know, the hippies and stuff that brought in. So we wouldn't be where we are without them. We're part of this thing. Like, you know, they say time isn't linear. It's true. Yeah. And when somebody in the 60s decided, you know what, I'm going to do free love and fuck everybody else and these norms, that was the start of something amazing. Yeah. And just like our generation, where we were just nobody took care of us. We had to take care of ourselves. But we also started having that independence. We wouldn't have been there if our parents had been helicoptering us.
Right. Exactly.
But we got to see that the people that are coming in, because I do it too. I'm like, I could be so much farther along if at 16 I was like totally like, because I was this, but I just wasn't confident in it.
Right.
I wasn't like,
well, because yeah, but because there is obviously something changing in that collective, right? That collective, right. I call it collective unconscious, but that's from Carl Jung, I think. Collective unconscious. I call it collective unconscious. That's what I remember learning in sociology, was the collective unconscious, I thought. Maybe not collective. I don't know. Anyway, collective conscious, we'll call it that, whatever. But whatever it is up here. But obviously it is shifting, right? Because we can see that this kind of life, this kind of being open to the etheric plane and being open to using and benefiting from nature, crystals, the moon, the cycles of the sun and moon and the planets, and being open and understanding it and taking it in and talking about it. See, it's one thing to do it personally or closely with your little friends, like quietly, right? And it's another to be like, and I'm doing this, and like telling people and saying stuff and being like, yeah, I am gonna do a new moon ceremony at my house this weekend, whatever, right?
Right.
That the ability to do that, to say it out loud, to just own it is showing that the shift in the collective is shifting, right? It is shifting. So, but what's interesting is that because I mean, when you look at history, like it's a cycle, right? There's, right after the Dark Ages was the Renaissance, right?
Yeah.
So there's always this light and dark, light and dark. It's circle, circle, yin yang. Like it's always doing its up and down, back. It's always a cycle. You have to have both, right? You can't appreciate the light if you haven't had the dark. But what's going to happen is as things get lighter, as the cosmic unconscious, collective unconscious changes and opens and becomes brighter with all of like our people,
Right.
our group, whoever they are, all the people listening to our podcast.
Like people.
There's going to be a deeper, darker side to it that's going to try to stomp it out. And and that's the problem, is like people get scared of the darkness, right? That shadow. And people are really scared of the darkness in humanity and the darkness of people, but understanding that, like, I don't know how you feel about this. I really think like there is no just light. Like you can't have just goodness and light and happiness everywhere. It doesn't actually happen in any sort of any part of the world, any part of the universe. It doesn't happen, because bringing it back to fire, fire is destructive. It's not it's like it has the power to be good, but it's also has the power to destroy. And it represents war.
Right.
It represents war. But it also represents money and success. And then there's light components to it. It allows you to use fire. Using fire allows you to like really bring in all the things that you want to bring in, but it also is really destructive. And so I think people will find that, and that's internal as well. Like I'm saying, like straight up, it's light and dark inside, light and dark outside. Like, so every time, and I know that you know this because we're probably doing it at the same time. You feel great one day, you're like, fuck yeah, we're doing it. And the next day or a couple days in, you're like, fuck. I don't know what the fuck.
Clockwork.
I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. What? I can't do any of this. I have no skills. Nobody's gonna listen to me. And it's an internal struggle as much as it's an external struggle, and it's just always gonna be like that. So then that's where that midheaven, like that's where that balance comes in, is like,
right,
you want to be the center pole to the like pendulum that's going around. Like I literally imagine like a, not necessarily a scale, but like the strong pole in the center, and just like almost like a yin yang sign just swirling around, right? How do you stay centered when shit's burning and creating and burning and creating around you? It's very impressive.
I want to say though that I really believe there's something to be said about balancing all of the elements.
Yeah.
I just get this feeling like I was reading this book that was amazing, and I'll have to share it with you. It's called The Magus, and it's this guy who had a Kundalini awakening. His name is Nebin Parr. I know his name better than I know the name of the book. The book is like, it's so good and it takes so long to get through, but he's a magician. And he had a Kundalini awakening, and he basically used the same path as the Golden Dawn to kind of go through this thing. But he talks about the Garden of Eden, and what really came to me when he was talking about it was all of the elements were balanced. Everything was, but there was nothing to be learned in that space. And I think that's why polarity and the duality that you're speaking of is so important. For us to know that, like, there's always going to be darkness, because we wouldn't be alive if the sun didn't have hydrogen and helium fighting against each other. It wouldn't be. If they stopped competing for whatever it is that they're competing for space, for energy to overcome, it would just not be. We would just disintegrate and it wouldn't be anything. But that's what solid form, earth, I guess, would be the best element to describe what the 3D is. And then you have these other things. So they're representative. So if the earth is representative of like us living, you know, what we stand on, grounding, Mother Earth kind of thing. And then we had fire, which is our intention, water, which is our emotion, and then air. So earth and air are sort of competing, right? Because air is completely light, where earth is completely solid, or it looks completely solid, right? And then water and fire, they not only can put each other out, right? With enough water, you would put out a fire. With enough fire, you'd put out the water. But in balance, you're balancing your emotion with your intention. Yeah. And that's where the divine masculine and the divine feminine really meet, from the earth and the air. So when we get these things and we can balance them within ourselves, this is, I don't know if you've ever read the Kabbalion, but this really talks about like balancing our inner gender, right? Our masculine and female tendencies, because they work together. So if the female is receptive, and it's the I, it's the part of us that wants to listen to other people, that like when somebody has an idea that's stronger than our own, we're like, okay, that person's right? There's a lot of sheep kind of tendency with that. And then the more masculine part of ourselves, which is not necessarily like masculine, but positive, right? That side is the part of us that's the person that's doing that to other people. So that's the leader in us saying, okay, this is the way it is. And other people are like, yeah. When we can balance these two things and balance all of the laws from the universe, you meet in the middle and then you open up, and that's where you become expanded and you have universal knowledge.
Right. And at that point, you're not, I mean, it's like, you're just not asking the questions anymore. I mean, like you said, like you learn from that darkness, right? You learn from, that's how you expand and get better. And so it's important to recognize darkness.
Or you move worlds.
Yeah.
And I don't mean like you actually like stop doing your life, but what happens when you become enlightened, like I was talking earlier about, you know, when you're light, and if I was really in a great mood and a great space and I was like having this wonderful energy and you're in a dark space and we meet up, you're like, fuck her. The energy discrepancy is going to make you and I go in different directions, right? So with that being said, it's kind of like planets, right? It's like you're moving in your own pace and I'm moving in my own pace. I'm going to move out of the darker, denser energy and into a lighter space. That's really in between worlds. It's like you're accepting your power, and I'm not going to allow you, because what really happens sometimes is when you're in a dark space and I'm in a good mood, your energy, if I'm in my lower mind space, I'm going to allow that to put me back into the 3D.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm going to take everything about what you're saying and your mood personal. And that's going to help me go right back down to where I was before. But what happens when we step into our power and we start to notice, I'm like, that's really about Bobby. That's not about Jessica. That's about her stuff, whatever she's got going on in her life. And then I start to move out of that. And then I find the people that are resonating at my own space. And it's all about vibration. That's where vibration comes in. And it's so important, because you and I wouldn't be having any conversation right now if we weren't sort of in a similar vibration. We would be repelling each other. Everything I would say would piss you off. Everything.
Well, and then there's also though the energy suck people, right? The people that actually do want that positive vibration, they come in, they suck all your energy out, and then they move on. You're like, whoa, the energy vampires. Like, I think that like, that's that could be a whole podcast in itself.
Well, that's narcissists, right? Narcissist.
Yeah, exactly.
Anybody who's feeding off of energy of the collective. And then there are people like us that are usually the food. But all of that has to do with not being in your power, because you're not going to attract a narcissist.
I'm not going to allow those people around me.
No, you will vibrate at some point. You start vibrating at a rate where people don't want to mess with you.
Yeah.
That's energy discrepancy is amazing because we don't realize it. But here's what happens. If you're in a relationship with somebody who's in a lower vibration and you're up here, and I don't know, I really don't like to make these judgments. I don't want to go around going, you're vibrating lower, but you'll notice, you'll meet somewhere in the middle. But if you're up here and you're starting to go down here, you're going to freaking notice that.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally.
So if an energy vampire is down here and he's like, well, let me just come into here, you're going to know that you're doing that. Now, whether that relationship has enough to want to keep you in that lower vibration just with that person, as we can see from all of the internet romantic stories, this is very common. Oh, he loves me, but his vibration is like not good, and he's a drug addict and he doesn't give a fuck about me, whatever the story is.
Right.
But then you have to acknowledge that, when somebody's making you slip down. How many friends have you had where, like, the relationship isn't working? When you're in divine alignment, you can feel anything that's not in alignment with you.
Yeah.
And it's a really big red flag. It's like, oh my gosh, every time I'm around this person, I start thinking bad things about myself. My energy dips. I have to take a nap. Or you go, oh man, that's really interesting. Let me not put myself in that situation when I'm around that person. And when you start to step into your power, you do that less and less and less, because you start to know, you know what? This is very obvious to me. If I have a phone conversation with you and I feel the whole time you're judging me, whatever that means, I'm just not going to start. I'm going to stop talking to you. And I'm not doing it out of malice or because I want you to die or because I hate you. It's because your energy is not something I want to have in my space.
Exactly.
And we have to give ourselves credit for when we can start to acknowledge and start doing things that are more in alignment with who we are, instead of having to feel guilty. This happens with family relationships, because friends are easy to be like, maybe I won't hang out with you for a while.
I can. Yeah, but you can't.
Well, you can separate yourself and move forward and not call them. But when it comes to relationships with people that you have to see, you're going on holiday, you're going to be, in the space, like you can't go to a certain city without seeing somebody because you post on Facebook, they're going to be all over you.
Yeah.
How do you do that? But the thing is that whatever energy they're spewing at you, you can just choose not to go into it. Yeah. There are people that you just put, and they get to know it. They know it as much as you do, actually. Even though we think we're somehow obligated to them, we can feel when the energy isn't correct.
Yeah.
And they know it too. And they're not really trying to be, because have you ever been around somebody that's really high vibrational? When you're not feeling it, it's like, yeah, I just want to get away as fast as I can, because all my darkness is coming up. All of the things that I don't want to look at right now are so in my face.
Yeah. Well,
how do I deal with that?
Family's really good at triggering.
Well, because we think we have to be, we're told as a society.
Well, we regress. I think a lot of us just regress into our child selves, because that's where we were getting attention, right? So that's where we live when we're with our family, is our child selves. Like, I know when I'm around my family, I do all the things to make everybody happy and like me. Like, I want my family to like me. I become a weird people pleaser. It's really fucking weird. And I recognize it. I recognize it. I'm like, what am I doing? But I become the comedian and the peacekeeper, and my whole family knows me as the record keeper. Like, I'm the person that's in charge of that somehow. I don't know, because I have a memory. I'm like, when the Alzheimer's kick in, you guys are all going to regret that. But but I think you're right in that, we have to, but it's so hard. I think people aren't, I know that you and I are in that space now, right? Mm-hmm. But it took a while to get there, and not giving up on it, and trusting that, people are going to drop off. People are going to drop off in your life. And your fire is going to shine so brightly that it's going to burn people and they're going to be pissed off at you. And, you know, and you can't take it, personally, because you have to keep going. You have to keep growing. You have to get better. That's why you're here.
The messenger part of me loves this message. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but kind of, because the messenger part of me, this is what came to me being a messenger, is that I can't decide for people what message they need to hear. If I'm sitting there in my mind, like, I don't know if I can share this. And yeah, I do a bunch of energetic work before I start working with someone to see where they're at. I'm obviously not going to tell them stuff that's going to fucking make them crazy, right? Because I know a bunch of stuff that can make people crazy. But and I can gauge it to see what's appropriate. But I'm saying that with certain people in your life, we don't know what they need. Yeah. And even though they're reacting to us, that might be the thing that brings them to the divine. That might be the thing that they need to feel. That's like, Bobby has always been this person to me, and now she's in this totally different thing. And maybe that's the thing that wakes them up, because whatever your moment was not a pretty moment. It could have been that thing that you were just sitting there and you're like, why do I feel this way? All of a sudden you're starting to see that these subconscious things are in play around certain people. And it was because one extra time you felt that way again. And it was so familiar and so painful that you decided to look at it a little bit deeper. And so we're that to people too. When our light shines on them and they feel the discrepancy, whether they're lighter than us and we feel the discrepancy, whatever is going on, we're constantly mirroring back to people the energy that they're putting out there. And they won't know what is needed to be fixed. And I'm not saying we're doing this consciously, and I don't go around thinking I'm better than people and here, let me shine my light on you.
More bright. I'm so bright. Follow me.
Right. But what I am saying, though, is that we're now talking about bringing this subconscious things that we always fall into around certain people, around our family, around our friends, to light, seeing it and actually looking at it. And not everybody does that because we're not aware of it. And the people that are not doing that are just not aware of it. They don't have the know-how. Right. It just hasn't been brought to it. But one of those times that you're speaking of, where you're having that play with that person, whatever that conversation, that could be their moment. We don't know the whole plan that the universe has, but it's perfect. We go and we trigger people. We go and we experience the lower parts of people. And you know what? The truth is we're going to be a bad guy in somebody's story. We're going to be a hero in somebody's story.
Yeah.
You know, there are people out there, no matter how well-intentioned you are, that think, God, Bobby, and
the worst.
God, Jessica, right? Like, yeah. They're just not our biggest fan. Yeah. And you know what? Every time you're around them, you can see yourself putting your foot in your mouth or saying the wrong thing, because the energy is like they've already predetermined.
Oh no, I'm a Capricorn. Once I walk away, I never see those people again.
But you know what I'm saying, though? They're out there telling their therapist every single thing you've ever done. Yeah. They're on Facebook staring at your stuff. Like, God, I hope she fails, right?
That's my sister. I know her therapist probably knows so much about me. I would be so entertained to hear. I would love to see the notes from the decades of therapy and what she's like said about me. I'm trying to find this really cool. Oh, I can't find it now. I found this really cool thing about fire, and I was gonna like bring it up, but I can't find it. Oh, is that it? That's it. Okay, so at this point, it's been like an hour.
Yeah, we're done.
Right? Yeah, like we're good. I think we can do a lot in an hour.
I think we can.
Did I stop recording?
Yeah, just